So an ABC poll says that 40% say that they are worse off financially now than they were 2 years ago. And the most negative response to that question in nearly 40 years under the Biden administration. And this is at a time where the CEO of America's second largest bank is preparing for possible U.S. debt default. As Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan is preparing for possible U.S. debt default, after seeing here that lots of reports on Instagram and TikTok, Reddit, of problems at Bank of America. Many customers are missing money and not getting answers. Meanwhile, Bank of America gave personal information to the FBI for 140 customers just for taking a bus to DC, and then ran them for anyone owning a firearm so the FBI could press charges. This is crazy, WTF. And the Fed is running a new stress test scenario that will include a new exploratory market shock for the 8 largest banks, some of which already testing out central bank digital currency pilot programs, CBDC. So ultimately, they are preparing for a huge recession kind of market shock, and Bank of America has been raising huge red flags about this. According to Reuters, the U.S. Federal Reserve on Thursday released the hypothetical economic strains that they will use to test the strength of big bank finances in its 2023 stress test, and floated the possibility of using multiple scenarios in the future. Now, in a statement, the Fed said this year's test will include a new exploratory market shock for the 8 largest banks, which will not affect their capital requirements, but will further detail their resilience, as well as help the Fed decide whether it should pursue multiple test scenarios in the future. The annual exam of bank health, in which the Fed sees how banks perform against a potential severe economic downturn, has become a critical event for large firms. How well they perform directly dictates how much capital they need to set aside as a cushion, or as we all know, as a bail-in. Meanwhile, the 2023 version will include a severe recession with heightened stress in both commercial and residential real estate markets and corporate debt markets. Banks with large trading operations will also be tested against a global market shock, as the Fed has done in years prior. But new this year is an extra market shock applied to the 8 largest firms, including JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, and Citigroup. While the Fed did not detail what the market shock would look like, they noted it would not contribute to a firm's capital requirements. Fractional reserve banking, folks. Now, instead, the results of the test are meant to be educational, including helping the Fed determine whether it could bolster future tests by applying multiple scenarios to companies to capture a wider array of risks. And I would imagine that these tests would be more likely in the future when we do see CBDC rolling out full steam. The 2023 test marks the first under-Fed Vice Chair for Supervisor Michael Barr, who had previously floated multiple scenarios as a way to better gauge such risks. But at the end of the day, folks, we got to realize that it's plain and simple. People are going to be missing money, and they're probably not going to be getting very many answers to help them find solutions to missing their money. And with that being said, if you guys aren't diversified, I want you guys to check the links in the description. I've diversified my portfolio. I hope you guys are too, as well as get your free stocks from Moomoo. Limited time offer. Moomoo's offering up to 15 free stocks. This is a limited New Year gift. Open an account and deposit up to $1,000 with getting 1 free stock for just opening an account. Once you have deposited $100, you'll get 5 more free stock. And at $1,000 deposit, you'll get 15 free stocks. This promotional period will run until February 28th, 2023. Get yours now. I've already gotten mine.
You got nothing. Okay, so when you say run tests and scenarios, they mean just a bunch of guys sitting around a round table in a room saying, so if A happens, what are the options, or if B happens?
Ultimately, where we're at right now is but our government and our financial, economic, monetary system leaders, folks. This is not just the U.S. This is going to be applied worldwide. The WEF, they're doing the same thing. But ultimately, it's a stress test to see, especially as we are approaching a recession, to see, basically, the bigger problem here really is the fact that there are people out there that are already struggling as it is 40% of Americans
So
are saying
that's the
that they are
wedding
worse
area.
off now than they have ever been before, which is like record-breaking according to these poll results. And meanwhile, there's really no plan in place to improve it, while the Fed is running these tests for further complications and destruction of lower income, poorer families, working class poor.
So that's where I'm confused. Running these tests for further destruction, like why does running a test affect us? Like, shouldn't it be something that they, like on the computer, if you run a scenario on a computer, it spits out the different options, like your Doctor Strange. You can see one scenario and then the 14 million other ways it could go. Like, is this something that they run in the public?
Well,
like they go, okay, well, let's screw over this little demographic real fast and see how it affects them, and then we'll know not to do it to the other demographics.
I don't know if it's a no vote not to do it. It's just a know of how effective it was. It's like, think about Resident Evil. Like, they ran that test over and over and over. How many Alice's did they go through to realize, all right, this strain is going to be like the one, okay? But let's just read what they say here. And it says that, and I don't mean to quote movies, but these movies are built on, ideas that really exist. So
or
it says,
some of the things that have happened in our country and in our world are built off of things they heard in movies, and they're like, oh, that's a good idea.
So the U.S. Federal Reserve, according to Reuters, said that they released yesterday a hypothetical economic strain that they will use to test the strength of big bank finances in 2023. So a hypothetical economic strain.
Which means it doesn't exist, which means it's not real.
Yet. There are reports and videos and lectures and TED Talks of people like even Bill Gates talking about the hypothetical strains that we've already experienced now.
So years ago, I was just totally astonished when I watched Bill Gates talk about the possibility of an epidemic, and impressed that he correctly predicted what the entire world was actually going to go through with the C-19 virus. Here he was back in March 2015 talking about why Ebola virus didn't spread more during that time.
The second is the nature of the virus. Ebola does not spread through the air. And by the time you're contagious, most people are so sick that they're bedridden. Third, it didn't get into many urban areas, and that was just luck. If it had gotten into a lot more urban areas, the case numbers would have been much larger. So next time, we might not be so lucky. You can have a virus where people feel well enough while they're infectious that they get on a plane or they go to a market. The source of the virus could be a natural epidemic like Ebola, or it could be bioterrorism. And so there are things that would literally make things 1,000 times worse. In fact, let's look at a model of a virus spread through the air like the Spanish flu back in 1918. So here's what would happen. It would spread throughout the world very, very quickly. And you can see there's over 30 million people die from that epidemic.
If you didn't know that this was a video from 2015, you would think that he's talking about the C-19 virus. Remember asymptomatic cases where people had no symptoms at all, but were supposed carriers of this sickness? He also talked about bioterrorism and a virus spread through the air. Sounds way too close to what we all just went through. Now, there's also a small hint here regarding kids getting jabbed.
What are the key pieces? First is we need strong health systems in poor countries. That's where mothers can give birth safely, kids can get all their vaccines.
Now, you might think that I'm stretching the truth on this one and that he was most probably talking about a different vaccine. But it's hard to remove the fact that vaccines played a major role with this health crisis that we went through. There were mandates and rules that were placed upon the entire globe that just seemed very one-sided at the time. Was any of this planned? We can't say for certain, but things lined up pretty dang well. As I remembered this talk from Gates, it prompted me to check the World Economic Forum's website. They ain't hiding this stuff, y'all. And would you look at that, early in February, and they have articles like this one. How to prevent shortages of critical supplies during a pandemic. Now, I'm not sure if we can collectively say that the pandemic is over, but it certainly seems as if they're preparing for yet another one. Should we now stockpile masks, face shields, toilet paper? Just asking. Because it sure seems like they're trying to tell us something right here.
And he's talking about years ago. So these folks, it's not a prediction if they're actually planning on it to happen.
So that's how you have to look at these, is everything that they're about to do, look at it as They're not testing. They're not. If they already have these ideas, they have them for a reason.
Right.
And it's not because you don't think of things unless you want these things or plan on implementing these things or desire these things or don't want these things. You know what I mean?
So this is a hypothetical economic strain. Just think about what that would mean to a family already being on the verge of being wiped out, based on Jerome Powell, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, and his statements of increased pain being felt by businesses and families, softening of the economy, shrinking of balance sheets, 1.2 million jobs lost, when experts and expert economists are saying that it's going to be closer to over 2 million jobs lost and an unemployment rate almost 6%. They don't have it in their budget. They have no budget. They have no savings. They have no retirement. We have more elderly retirees looking at going back to work because of inflation, and they can't afford to stay retired. And the Fed is running a hypothetical economic stress test that will put economic strain on an already crippling economy, and as we're heading into a recession, and a 2023 stress test that is going to test exploratory market shocks. Exploratory market shocks for people who are not even in the market. So that when they run these market shocks, which they've done before in the past, they just haven't put it out like this. Mm-hmm. This is that open door that allows people a chance to get in and grow and have the opportunity to actually get some ROI. But really and truly, most people are unaware, and they're literally struggling to get by. We got these job reports that are saying that more people are employed now than ever before, when all actuality, they're not saying is that more people are employed now than ever before, because more people are employed now with multiple jobs just to get by to pay the same bills that now cost more than they ever have before.
So this is going to be an extremely unpopular opinion, but here we go. When you said that 40% of Americans say they are feeling the pain, and I hear something flying above it. So they're feeling the pain and that they're the worst off they've ever been or whatever else. My question is, what 40% are they talking about? Are they talking about the ones who are able-bodied to go out and work yet still rely on SNAP? Or are they talking about the older people who are now having to go back to work because inflation has run through their savings that they weren't expecting? Or are they talking about, like, who are the people that they polled? They didn't poll the 1%.
Well, ironically, 16% said that they are better now with their personal finances than they were 2 years ago. So there is a slim portion out there, and I believe it. I believe it. Now, granted, I don't know the reach that they cast their net for this poll, but a majority are either the same or worse, at a combined total of 83%. Now, the other one here, which is shocking, folks, we continuously cover what's going on with the markets and our economy, and most importantly, our money, which, folks, free links in the description with free information if anybody out there is trying to improve their financial situation.
Which everybody should be out there trying to improve their financial situation.
Diversity, security, and cash flow. But here's a heads up, folks, because these stress tests, these predictions, they're not really predictions when they're planned. So check this out. It took 1,285 days for victims' families and the borderland community to finally receive some justice, as the gunman who killed 23 people during a mass shooting at an El Paso Walmart pleaded guilty. And Patrick Crusius, 24, pleaded guilty Wednesday to 90 charges in connection with the August 3rd, 2019 mass shooting. The charges included 23 counts of hate crimes resulting in deaths, 23 counts of use of a firearm to commit murder during and in relation to a crime of violence, 22 counts of hate involving an attempt to kill, and 22 counts of a use of a firearm during and in relation to a crime of violence. What does that tell you? I'll tell you what it tells me. It tells me, and it further confirms what we have already been seeing, is that Walmart wants to continuously further distance themselves from situations like these that they are ultimately becoming an attractive nuisance for and enabling, which means no more employees, no more customers in the stores, online e-commerce, pickup only, Walmart Spark Delivery. You got to have an appointment to shop, and we're moving to OpenAI ChatGPT. And then we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, when the robots start shooting each other.
So here's why I think Walmart is shutting down. It's not because of theft. Everybody wants to say theft, theft, theft. No, it's because Walmart cannot continuously pay out to these families of these victims that are murdered or assaulted in their stores, in their parking lots. It's not theft. Your $4 eyelashes do not compare to your $1.5 million murder. Like,
it's not just that, but it's also shareholder sentiment, and it's the stock valuation and the stock price. As it comes down to making money, turning profits, and having the ability to pay CEO Doug McMillon $26 million a year.
Yeah. Okay. That will always bother me.
And folks, if you guys are out there spending money at these establishments like Walmart and Starbucks and all these other companies and corporations, Amazon,
Goodwill,
that are well, not Goodwill. I don't think Goodwill is publicly traded, but these companies that are that you're spending your dollars on, that they're making record profits hand over fist, and are literally devising plans to continuously evolve and eliminate people. If you're not investing in them, you're only being a consumer, and you will ultimately be left out. So I'm not telling you guys what to do. This is not financial advice, but me personally, we have a fair amount of stock in these companies, and we are reaping the benefits from their growth and their profits and their revenues, and we're not going to be left behind financially to a point of which we are included in the demographic and the cluster and group of people that they ultimately want to see wiped out, that will eventually get to a point of not being able to afford their higher prices and being able to afford food and have food insecurities and food shortages at home and empty pantries.
So here's my question for you. Is it better for the CEO of Walmart to make $26 billion, I don't know how much he makes, $26 million a year, in a publicly traded company, or is it better for the CEO of Goodwill to make $26 million a year in a non-publicly traded company? Which one is really screwing over the people then? That's my question. Like, in a publicly traded company, it makes sense that those people make more money in theory because you have more people putting money into it and more people getting money out of it, right? But if you are a non-publicly traded company...
So Goodwill is a nonprofit, and it's not publicly traded. So I would have to go through and look at the compensation for its executives and its members and its employees to tell you. But they're not publicly traded. But there are some nonprofits out there that are pulling in some record-breaking revenues, but some of which are actually for good purposes and using these revenues and this money that they pull in to help so many people. But then there are others out there that are they're nonprofits, but you know, their goal is to just ultimately create this high level of generational wealth that they really have no intention on giving back to the people, and any donations that they actually do provide for the cause or the, you know, in relation to the meaning behind the charitable organization is going to, a lot of these charitable organizations are not quite what they seem, and they actually spend more money trying to raise the funds and actually providing any help and assistance to the people who actually need it. While at the same time, there's a large portion of people out there who are pretending to need this help and this assistance and this aid, and they're actually taking advantage of this, and they're just using this as a way to collect free money.
So can we go to my unpopular opinion now?
Sure.
Here's my unpopular opinion. I personally am not a fan of the fact that our elderly, who have pretty much worked their entire lives, who have built this country, are now in a position where they can no longer afford to eat, they can no longer afford to keep their heat on, their lights on, their home, things like that, while there are able-bodied 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds out there mooching off the government as opposed to hustling their butts off and working as much as humanly possible. Now, if there is a physical limitation or something, mental limitation, that is completely different. I'm not talking about the people who legitimately need help. I'm talking about the lazy mofos who do not need to be mooching off the government, and what they're doing is taking it away from people who legitimately could use it, like the 90-year-old woman who does not need to be delivering pizzas for Domino's and tripping over the stairs on her way up to the front door of a house. That just happened yesterday.
Well, I mean, this is also tying into the video I posted yesterday about some folks that are utilizing these government aid and stimulus programs like SNAP and EBT. They want the free money from the government, but they don't want to do anything besides collect that free check. And they instead of waking up early to go to work, they'll wake up early to wait outside an ATM to get their money when the money hits and when the money drops for the first few days, first of the month, first week of the month, whenever the money comes in. While these programs are actually taking away from some of the benefits available to Social Security, with a lot of people asking, will Social Security be around for me in the future? Honestly, the answer is yes, but to full capacity, probably not, especially with expectations of them reaching some form of deficit in like 2030 or 2035 and having to reduce the payouts. But with that being said, I did make I did want to share a link with you guys. I'll put it at the top of the description so you guys can find it. And if you are of an older age group, elderly, senior, possibly retired or near retiring, and you're looking for ways to supplement and increase your income, go ahead and check that link out. Click it. It's right there at the top of the description. We'll see you guys on the next one. You guys take care. Be safe. Bye.